Hey everyone, I'm Megyn Kelly. Welcome to the Megyn Kelly Show. What is the truth about Minnesota Governor and now Democratic Vice Presidential pick Tim Walz and his military service record? Questions have been swirling, including allegations that Mr. Walz abandoned his fellow troops in their greatest time of need. Even claims of stolen valor. Yesterday on this program, I spoke with a Minnesota National Guard veteran who has been sounding the alarm on this story for years. Tom Behrens, who took over the post, Tim Walz left when he retired just as his unit, the unit under his command, was deploying to Iraq, was on this program yesterday. And Tom made some stunning allegations. For what it's worth, the Harris-Walz campaign and the complicit media would have you believe this entire controversy is just a bunch of nonsense. But today we're going to bring you the receipts. Here's what we know. Days after the September 11th, 2001 attack on our nation, Mr. Walz re-enlisted in the National Guard for a 6-year commitment. He would later claim it was only 4. Alpha News, they're in Minnesota, they've obtained the paperwork. It was 6. So I don't know why he's misleading about that, but he signed up to stay in until 2007. 2007, not 2005. In late 2003, he deployed with his unit to Italy in support of Operation Enduring Freedom. Operation Enduring Freedom is also known as the war in Afghanistan. He never went to Afghanistan. He never saw active combat, nor was he part of Enduring Freedom. Again, that name is used for the war in Afghanistan. He was in a support role in Italy. In the military, these words matter. In February of 2005, okay, we're flash forwarding now 2 years from the Italy service, he filed paperwork with the Federal Election Commission to run for Congress. 1 month later, in March, his own campaign acknowledged before he retired from the National Guard, he was still in the National Guard, that he knew he might be getting deployed to Iraq. They put out a press release titled, quote, Walz still planning to run for Congress despite possible call to duty in Iraq. And indeed, this is something that is done. Sometimes active duty National Guardsmen also running for office. At that time, he said, quote, as Command Sergeant Major, I have a responsibility not only to ready my battalion for Iraq, but also to serve if called on. That's him, months before he retired. After he'd already said, I'm thinking about running for Congress. I'm dedicated to serving my country to the best of my ability, whether that's in Washington, D.C. or in Iraq. 2 months later, in May of 2005, Mr. Walz, the same one who 6 weeks earlier said, quote, I have a responsibility to serve if called on, retired from the National Guard, effectively telling those who served under him, good luck in Iraq. I won't be there. This was years before his commitment was due to end. Now the media points to the fact that his unit did not receive the official alert orders to deploy to Iraq until July 2005, 2 months after Walz officially retired. But that doesn't change the fact that he clearly knew that a deployment was a possibility at the time he decided to bail. Nor does it change the fact that Walz retired early. Those are facts that are not in dispute. He retired early, even by his own measure, where he's claiming he was allowed to retire at some point in 2005. It's fine. They do retire early sometimes. It's not totally unusual for someone in the service to retire early once they've, surpassed the time that they committed to. But this was a re-up, the 6 years, but not on the eve of being deployed with all of the men under you who you're responsible for the first time to the theater of war. That's what makes this controversial. There's no question he did that. His own letter acknowledging he knew he was likely to get a deployment notice to Iraq months before he retired shows you he retired, left his unit, knowing he was abandoning those men. That is a fact that our guest, Tom Behrens, yesterday took real issue with.
Everybody was in shock because senior NCOs don't do that. I mean, that you basically train for years and years. You're with your soldiers. Your soldiers are literally like your kids almost. I mean, you've watched them grow up. You've helped them shoot guns and learn how to do the radio stuff and, fix wounds if you can and different things. And then all of a sudden when it's time to go do your thing with that, you quit. I mean, that just absolutely it was just disgusting.
His former unit would eventually deploy for 22 months at the height of some of the worst violence Iraq has ever seen. And at least 3 members of that unit were killed. And where was Tim Walz? He was sitting in D.C. in Congress. The campaign will say Walz did his part, serving for 24 years in uniform, and was a tireless advocate for our men and women in uniform as a congressman. Fair enough. The record will bear that out, or it won't. We'll, I'm sure, have somebody digging into all those claims, but he certainly served the nation for 24 years as a National Guardsman. But Mr. Walz also appears to have misled, or at least did not correct, mistakes about his military record repeatedly. A newspaper article about his run for Congress falsely claimed he served in Iraq. This is when he was first running. He did not serve in Iraq. Again, he served in Italy. Did he call them up and try to correct that? There's no correction on it. Back in 2004, Walz was photographed at a protest carrying a sign reading "Enduring Freedom Veterans for Kerry." Again, that insinuates he served in Afghanistan as part of Enduring Freedom. He did not. He was in a supportive role in Italy. And again, in the military, just ask military vets, these words matter. A veteran named David Thule confronted Mr. Walz's aides in his congressional office about that representation, that sign suggesting he had served in Operation Enduring Freedom. Back in 2009, the guy went into the campaign offices and sat down with Mr. Walz's staff, and Mr. Thule filmed the encounter. Here's part of that exchange.
We're here on a veteran-related issue. I don't know if you are familiar with this picture at all. This was taken in 2004 here in Mankato, and it's actually been posted on the internet for quite some time, and nobody quite realized what it is. But in this picture, Congressman Walz here is holding a sign that says "Enduring Freedom Veterans for Kerry." So tell me what your understanding of his military background is.
Yeah, I understand that he was called up in support of it. Yeah. Obviously, in support of that operation. That's how I've always understood it. And so the time that he, when he got called up, I guess I've always referred to it as, he was called up and served in support of Operation Enduring Freedom.
Okay, so is there any question in your mind what Enduring Freedom is?
No.
Okay, so I guess most people, and you yourself included, would associate Enduring Freedom with Afghanistan, right?
Right, but okay. I mean, I think it, as I also understand that it encompasses a great deal in there.
Well, Operation Enduring Freedom is limited to Afghanistan and the airspace directly above. There's other units that are called up in support of, and I'm sure that's probably what his military orders said.
Right.
My concern, other than this picture, is that the congressman's website, his official biography, says simply that he was mobilized with his battalion in support of Operation Enduring Freedom. Without any other details, don't you think it's reasonable people might assume that means he served in Afghanistan?
Perhaps, I guess.
Are you aware of any of the media reports from 2006 that inaccurately cited the congressman as a war veteran?
Specifically, I can't think of any right now, but I don't. I would imagine that I know people have approached me as a staffer and thought that, and so I've corrected them. If you serve in support of an operation, you're not necessarily a veteran of that operation. Exactly. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
So your question is more about this picture than his biography.
I have two questions.
Yeah.
The biography is one of them. That's bad. That's misleading. That's a little bad. This right here, under current U.S. law, this could get the congressman probably thrown in jail in violation of the 2006 Stolen Valor Act, which says it is a crime, a federal crime, to portray yourself in writing or verbally as having received an award or decoration authorized by Congress that you didn't receive. Congressman Walz is clearly claiming in this sign, in this picture with this sign, to be an Enduring Freedom veteran. He is clearly, nobody disputes the fact that he is not an Afghanistan or Enduring Freedom veteran. So this represents a fairly serious issue. So can I leave you my name and number, and can I trust that someone will get back to me on this issue?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, you heard the gentleman raising not only that sign, which said he was a veteran of Operation Enduring Freedom, but also Walz's own campaign announcement, in which he called himself a veteran of Operation Enduring Freedom. Okay. All right, so he said it himself. He held a sign that said it, and he said it himself in his campaign announcement. He's a veteran of Operation Enduring Freedom. Flash forward to 2008, and Walz also endorsed a book. That book was titled Winning Your Election the Wellstone Way. The book had a section on Tim Walz, falsely describing Walz as a National Guardsman who served in Afghanistan. Now, he pushed this book, he endorsed this book. Are we supposed to believe he didn't look at the one piece of the book that was about him and say, hey, I did not serve in Afghanistan? Out of respect for the men who did, that needs to be changed. And then there are Walz's own false statements about how he is allegedly, now don't play this soundbite yet, allegedly a retired command sergeant major. I'm going to play the soundbite, but just keep in mind when you hear this, it is the word retired that makes this title false. And once again, titles and words in the military matter.
I'm a retired command sergeant major. I spent 24 years in the Army National Guard.
So when you first came to Washington, you were a retired command sergeant major in the Army National Guard, so you were drawn immediately to...
As a 24-year veteran of the National Guard and the Red Bull Division and a retired command sergeant major.
He's not. He's not. According to the Minnesota National Guard, Mr. Walz did not complete the necessary work to achieve that title in retirement. He did not earn it. He held that title provisionally for a short time, but did not do the 2-year training to actually earn it. He quit, and he retired at a lower rank. This has all been confirmed by many, including the officials, and it's on the Stolen Valor X account as well. J.D. Vance, himself an Iraq War veteran, has hit Tim Walz hard on this issue. Yesterday, reporters tried to get Walz's response to the flurry of reporting that is coming out now about his misrepresentations regarding his record. He either did not hear them or refused to answer. Watch.
Governor, Vance accused you of stolen valor. Your response. Governor, Vance accused you of stolen valor. Your response.
And it's not just all of that. Just this week, the Harris-Walz campaign tweeted out a video of Tim Walz in 2018. He was bragging about his record on guns. And once again, he misstated the facts. Take a listen to him in 2018, I think it is, SOT 6.
Hope woke up like many of you did 5 weeks ago and said, Dad, you're the only person I know who's in elected office. You need to stop what's happening with this. I'll take my kick in the butt for the NRA. I spent 25 years in the Army and I hunt. And I gave the money back, and I'll tell you what I have been doing. I've been voting for common sense legislation that protects the Second Amendment, but we can do background checks. We can do CDC research. We can make sure we don't have reciprocal carry among states, and we can make sure that those weapons of war that I carried in war is the only place where those weapons are at.
Except he did not carry weapons in war. He went to Italy in support of the war that was being fought by our guys in Afghanistan. And when it was time for him to carry a weapon and go to Iraq, he quit. Those are the facts. Joining me now, Andrew Klavan, host of The Andrew Klavan Show and author of the recently released mystery novel, The House of Love and Death. Don't miss a moment. Subscribe to this show on YouTube and follow me on Insta, Facebook, and X. One Texan doctor with zero big pharma ties is sharing a breakthrough medical discovery, and it's about taking charge of your health. No flashy big promises. He's focused on results. He says a unique protein can strengthen your bones, ease joint discomfort, minimize wrinkles, and improve digestion, all by working in harmony with nature and your body's God-given resilience. No chemicals, no weird additives or scary side effects. And some users are reporting significant improvements in just 2 weeks. This Texan doctor is giving you up to 45% off this protein at nativepath.sales/MK. With thousands already experiencing the benefits and over 4 million jars sold, this is not just a trend, it's a commitment to genuine well-being. And here's the best part. Every order backed by a 365-day money-back guarantee, because your satisfaction matters. Want to embrace a healthier, more vibrant you with stronger bones and more mobility well into your golden years? Consider checking out nativepath.sales/MK now to claim your exclusive discount of up to 45% off. Andrew, welcome back. Great to see you. This is all very disturbing. This is serious stuff. And I know the left wants to dismiss this as, just some small little nothings. This matters to the guys who actually fought overseas.
It should matter to everyone. First of all, great report, Megyn, really well researched and really got to the heart of the matter. I never served, so I'm very slow to criticize Walz for when he pulled out of his 24 years of service. I appreciate his 24 years of service. And he has a chance to address questions about why he pulled out. The lying, however, I can address. In 2008, I was embedded very briefly with the troops at FOB Kalagoosh in Afghanistan. I was there for about a week to cover a story for City Journal. They liked me, so as a gift, as a parting gift, they gave me a T-shirt, making me a sort of honorary member of the 101st Airborne, calling me their mascot. I guess I was like their poodle that they had around. I've never worn that T-shirt out of the house, not once, not ever, and I never will, because I'm terrified that anybody might wrongly think, that I had served with them. I was visiting. I appreciated the gift. I might wear it in the house at some time. Never wear it out of the house. Never want anyone to think that I did more than the very, very little I did do as a journalist over there, because it's a real thing. It is a real thing to go into the service. It's a real thing to be deployed into a war zone. And it is a real thing to fight and be in battles and be in combat situations. These are all things that you should be very extraordinarily careful about. And it just fits in with the rest of Walz's campaign so far. I know it's only a few days, but it's all fake. It's all this stuff about, he's folksy, he's a Midwesterner, he's a moderate. He's not. He's a far left governor who has done dreadful things in that state. And what I don't understand about this, and this is just true of the left and especially the leftist media altogether, is if they're so far left, if they believe in leftism, if they believe in progressivism, how come they got to lie about it all the time? How come everything they say about this guy is fake to convince us that he's not what he is? All of that aside, convincing us on a political level that he's not what he is one thing, but convincing us that he is a military combat veteran it's inexcusable. And that one thing he said, where the weapons of war that I carried in war have to stay in war. No, I mean, that is literally claiming an authority you don't have for a policy position that you're taking. It is one thing for J.D. Vance to say, I was a Marine, I was in Iraq, this is the way I feel about this, as that guy, as a veteran, to say that you want the weapons that you carried in war to be restricted back in your home country, where presumably the people fighting in combat are there to defend, among other things, the Second Amendment. It's just inexcusable. And also the fact is that clip you played of the journalist shouting at him and him not answering. Have either of these candidates, Kamala or Walz, have either of them answered a question? Have either of them stood in front of the press and talked? And are the press clamoring for them to do it? It's all fake. It is all illusion. And it's really disturbing in this case.
I think about, my mom, she's retired now. Now she's in her 80s, but she spent her whole career working as a nurse at the Albany Veterans Hospital. All she did was take care of vets, all the vets from all the wars over the past 40 years. And these guys, so many of them come back severely damaged from their experiences, whether, yes, it can be the loss of limbs, but it can also just be the PTSD, the deep trauma, drug addiction that follows. I'd go see her and you'd see the World War II vets who would stand and salute her, the nurse, as she walked by. These guys know nothing other than respect, they'd stand up, they'd take such good care of the flag and make sure it was properly displayed. That's our vets, right? And so many of them actual combat vets, and wear the wounds to show it. That's why those guys take such issue with people who bump up along the line of saying they did something they didn't do, saying you were part of enduring freedom when you weren't, saying you carried a weapon in war when you didn't. And what we're seeing right now, Andrew, it's pretty interesting, is, I had Sean Ryan on the show a couple months ago. He was amazing, former Navy SEAL. And he tweeted out this picture of himself with the combat paint on his face. And the caption is, "This is a photo of me not being Tim Walz. Some of us answered the call, and some of us, Tim Walz, cowered in the rear." Then there's Sean Parnell, who had run for Senate in Pennsylvania a couple years ago. Same picture of himself with his guns. "This is a photo of me not being Tim Walz." There are more and more and more, all these guys under this same timeline posting pictures of themselves actually serving. Look, here's another one. Me not being Tim Walz. These guys get it. And they are not going to be spun by Morning Joe saying, "Oh, there's nothing to this. This is not like," you tell it to these brave guys who put on their uniforms, grabbed their guns, and actually risked their lives and saw their buddies die in the theater that he quit on as his unit went off without him.
Yeah, and I respect the fact that military people are saying these things, but we should all be saying them. Every single one of us. This is a thing that has bothered me about the way we treat our soldiers since the days of Vietnam, when soldiers were being spat upon when they came home for the work that they did. Everything we do depends on them. I read and write for a living. I read and write and talk for a living. That depends on them. That doesn't happen without them. If you're married, if you're having a good time sitting with your wife and having a glass of wine, that depends on these guys. If you go to the opera, if you walk with your child, whatever you're doing, it depends on these guys. And they can be invisible because we're so powerful. Our country is so big and so powerful that we don't see them every day, as we would say if we lived in a little village in the middle of nowhere. Our country is so large and they keep us so safe that they become invisible, but they're always there, and everything we do depends on them. And that's why we pay them the respect that we do. That's why they get to board planes first. That's why we talk to them with the kind of respect that we do. And that's why guys step aside when they walk down the street. We all feel this way, that like, if you're doing that thing, you are doing the essential thing that makes everything else that we do possible. So while I have nothing but respect for the military people who are coming out with that special brand of feeling hurt and insulted that their valor is being stolen, I think everybody should react to this. And I think he has to stand up. He has to come forward and talk to the press about this. What did he mean by the weapons he carried in war? What did he mean? And you're also right, by the way, about the fact that he didn't send in corrections. That would have been the first thing I would have done had I seen something like that. I mean, that's a really bad, I've had people credit me with winning awards I didn't win, or being on a bestseller list when I wasn't, and I always called them up and corrected it. But this is so much more important than that. That's so trivial. But you don't want to be
part of a pattern.
Things that you
part of a pattern, Andrew, right? If you look back at the histories, we just laid it out. His campaign announcement is saying he was he was served in Operation Enduring Freedom. Him holding the sign, Enduring Freedom Veteran. The newspaper article saying he had served in Iraq. In the next one saying in Afghanistan. Him not correcting it over and over, and it dovetails with the fact that he's going by retired command sergeant major. And that matters too. It was a higher rank than the one he actually earned. They gave him a shot at command sergeant major, thinking he was going to be there for another couple of years and that he would have to go to this other school for training to earn that higher rank. Well, he didn't. He left. He didn't go to Iraq. He didn't do the training. And so what happens in the military is then when you retire, if you didn't actually earn the provisional rank they gave you for a short time, you retire at the lower rank. You get different benefits and so on. And that was confirmed. That's been confirmed by Stolen Valor too. And he's been running around telling everybody he's retired command sergeant major, which he's trying to elevate himself, make himself sound more important than he actually was. I'm just saying all of this is part of a pattern, and it's a disturbing pattern. And just in my history and my opinion, you don't mess with military honors or achievements. It's just a hard rule. You don't try to make yourself sound braver than you were or like you took on a bigger commitment than you did. If you do, normal, honest media will hit you for it. Even CNN was forced to do a report acknowledging he was out of line and he misstated things yesterday on this. MSNBC going a different way entirely. All right, let me pivot to the Morning Joe. Well, no, I'll get to Morning Joe in a second, to the tarmac moment you mentioned. So they yelled the question at him and he either didn't hear or he didn't respond. And now Ben Shapiro's keeping like a daily count. I think we're on day 19 now of Kamala Harris not taking any questions or doing a presser. He's exactly right. Where is she? Hello? I mean, she's just this curated version of her old self, and we're supposed to just forget what the old self was and sounded like and believe this new version is the real her. Okay. And J.D. Vance did a bit of a stunt yesterday to try to call attention to the fact that she's not speaking to the press. She's being protected by them. And here was a bit of that as his airplane landed near Air Force Two in Eau Claire, Wisconsin yesterday.
I figured I'd come by and one, just get a good look at the plane. Hopefully it's going to be my plane in a few months. But I also thought you guys might get lonely because the vice president doesn't answer questions from reporters and hasn't for 17 days. Have they given you guys an explanation for why she won't take questions from reporters? No? Nobody? Okay, great. Well, I hope that she changes her mind because it'd be good for the American people, and I think it'd be good for you all if she actually ran a real campaign instead of one from a basement with a teleprompter. So have a good one, guys. See ya.
What would you like to hear from her?
I'd love her to answer some questions. I'd love her to just answer what she wants to do and also explain why every single position she has changed.
And here was the Kamala Harris HQ response. It's a video of one of the Dance Moms ladies.
And now I want to sit back and relax and enjoy my evening. When all of a sudden I hear this agitating, grating voice.
And they're showing his plane. Okay. He's trying to get us to cover. He's trying to get, not us, but the mainstream media to hold her to account, Andrew.
Well, it's humiliating to them. That's why they weren't laughing. That's why they're kind of backing up as if he were assaulting them. Because, you send out a reporter, he's supposed to be aggressive. He's supposed to be getting the facts without fear or favor. Obviously, they're not doing that. They don't conceive of their job in that way anymore. I mean, when I was a reporter, that was the way we thought of our job, and you could fail or succeed at it, or you could cheat at it, whatever you wanted, whatever you were capable of doing. But that's not the way they think of it anymore. They actually think of it as creating this fantasy atmosphere in which we're supposed to vote. I mean, look at this, Megyn. 1 week we're being told that Joe Biden is the smartest guy in the room. He's sharp. He's on top of it. He hasn't lost any of his skill. He's better. This is the best Joe Biden we've ever had. The next day, 2 days after his debate with Trump, suddenly the guy is a drooling fool who's got to step down, who's dragging the entire party with him. Then he steps down and he's George Washington. Oh my God, the incredible selflessness with which he stood aside. I'm getting whiplash at this point. And then Kamala Harris steps up, and the same people who have just spent all this time lying to us once, lying to us twice, lying to us a third time, suddenly, oh, she's so lovable. She's such a competent person. And she's moderate. She's not far left at all. She doesn't believe any of the things she said. The one thing that does not exist is video or audio of Kamala Harris saying, I no longer believe all the things that I said and did before. And I actually separate myself from the Joe Biden policies that I've been supporting all this time. And I take back the fact that I lied about him being the sharpest tack in the room. So all of this stuff is fantasy. And there's now no longer a structure except for you and me and Ben at the Daily Wire and Elon Musk. There's no longer a mainstream structure to call these people to account because they no longer conceive of their jobs that way. They conceive of their jobs as creating this fantasy in which who's too foolish to understand how wonderful progressivism is, will be tricked into following the progressive path. They've been doing this at least since Obama just ran an entire life. He ran an entire shadow life where he never actually cast a vote, never actually said a word that could be held against him, and then suddenly became a left-winger once he got in office. So this is the pattern. I think we should ask them, if DEI is so good, why is it bad to call Kamala Harris a DEI hire? If progressivism is so great, why do you have to convince us that Tim Walz is a moderate? If all of these things are so wonderful, if it's so wonderful to give porn to kids, to elementary school kids, why can't I read the porn out loud at a PTA meeting? Why is it that everything they do has to be done in secret and the fantasy has to cover it over?
The fantasy is exactly right. And it is all part of keeping her underground and not available to the press for questions or for a presser, God forbid. There was some report out today, like maybe after Labor Day, she'll give an interview. Maybe. Are you kidding me? It's August 8th. She's already been out there for 19 days and maybe she'll give an interview after. I mean, it's absurd. And the media, meantime, is leaning hard into the fabrications around the new Kamala because the fantasy must be created. This false image must be created and built up and supported. And just as J.D. Vance has to be created into a weirdo, right? Like lies about him, actual smears have to be propagated by even Tim Walz, his opponent on the VP side. But on Kamala, what they've done is they've, changed all of her weirdness into brat summer. It's cool. It's like she's the drunk wine aunt. That's what they've been telling us. The nonstop cackle, which is she just sounds like a moron. I mean, she does the cackle in response to awkward situations in which she clearly doesn't know what to say. She's stumped yet again because she doesn't seem like a very smart person. So she's stumped a lot. So she just uses the cackle. And instead, what they've done is try to rebrand this as she's joyful. That's her being such a joyful person. And by the way, not just Kamala, but Democrats. So they're parlaying it into the enthusiasm we're seeing by Democrats that they've been brought back from the dead, right? They had a nearly dead candidate who they were going to have to drag across the line weekend at Bernie style on November 5th. Now they've gotten a live person. So they actually are feeling happy, but their joy over the resurrection and her, quote, joy, which is really her cackles, does not mask the fact that 70% of the country believes we're going in the wrong direction. People can't pay their mortgages. There's a flood of illegals here, over 10 million, who are hurting people, infecting us with fentanyl and so on. And yet, just listen to the Pravda media. This is just from like 1 hour of MSNBC this morning on the joyful message.
This joy, this campaign of infectious and dynamic joy.
Tear these two very positive, joyful, energetic people down. Embrace the joy, which you see them doing. There's a lot of joy, a lot of optimism out of the box.
The vice president has spoken to this eloquently with great joy, great enthusiasm. And joy, I think, is a great word because you can see this in Tim Walz.
This week for Democrats has been, not to overuse this word, such a joyful one.
It was literally 1 hour. I mean, what do you make of it?
Well, it's infectious joy. It's like syphilis or measles or something. You just can't help catching the joy. And listen, you're right. There is some joy in the Democrat Party. The people who are going to sit this election out because they could not bring themselves to vote for a dead man are now turning up. And there's no question about this. And the Trump campaign should pay attention to it. And Republicans should pay attention to it. It's a real thing. It's not affecting Trump's popularity, which has remained just about where it was, just under 50%. That's good. And because a lot of it has to do with independents. A very small number of independents are going to determine the outcome of this election. And he's still leading with them. And those are important facts. But he has stumbled in the last week or so. It's kind of interesting. You know, he said himself that Kamala Harris was coming. Remember on the golf cart, he said, we're going to have to deal with Kamala Harris. And yet he seemed kind of totally taken aback by her presence and not really known how to attack her. And that has given the Democrats a good week. You know, we shouldn't ignore the fact that the fantasy is powerful. A lot of people live in fantasy. A lot of people don't deal with reality. A lot of people don't know anything. Think about this, Megyn. If you go on Kamala Harris's website, you go on Trump's website, it tells you he has Agenda 47 and he has all the things that he wants to do. And if you click on those, it takes you to very detailed white papers of the Republican platform. There is not one policy statement on the Kamala Harris website.
Yeah. Can I tell you something, Andrew? I'm pretty sure our show broke that. You know how we broke that news? Yeah, I'm pretty sure we broke that. Because after we broke it, I started seeing it everywhere. But anyway, my friend, who is a recovering Democrat, who's now going to campaign for Trump, she sent it to me. She's like, you've got to be kidding me. This is all that's there. I'm like, no, you've got to be kidding me. This can't really be her website. And indeed, it is her website. It's just her in a bunch of pride gear. She's just like bi pride, gay pride, trans pride, with her in the rainbows. We don't know where she stands on anything because she flip-flopped via a campaign spokesperson on some things, but not others. But I don't believe the flip-flops anyway, because they all were toward more moderate things that would make her more electable. Now, I believe what she said the first time when I could see her on camera saying the things.
Well, this is the other part of the fantasy, of course, the Democrat Party, the big switch that's going on. And the reason Trump has to fight so hard within his own party is that the Democrat Party has become the party of the elites. I mean, it's where educated people go. It's where people with PhDs go. It's where people who are in the professions go. The working class are now moving to the Republican Party, which is not good for the white shoe kind of Wall Street Journal types who want to keep it the party of uber capitalism. And so Trump is having a hard time in his own party in that regard. But this is really important when you look at their issues, the pride flags and the racial ideas and all this stuff. They are constantly pretending to be fighting for the little guy. But if you watch where these movements go, they always become the opposite of what they started out to be. So they start out, racial equality. You think, well, black people should be treated fairly and be treated like everybody else. And you go, yes, yes, yes. And now here we are down the line, and suddenly they should be hired before anybody else for the color of their skin. Racism is good as long as it's the right racism. We now need to get rid of white people. White people are bad. It's all turned on its head. Instead of equality, it's actually become another kind of racism. The same thing is true with the gay movement. It starts out with, gay people should be allowed to visit their, loved ones on their deathbed. And then it becomes, no, we have to queer your children. Your children are not well unless they're actually queer themselves. And all of it becomes the reverse. Women, especially, I think it starts out, women should be free to make their own choices. And you go, yes, of course, that makes perfect, good American sense. And it ends up with there's no such thing as women and a man can become a woman. It all gets turned around. And the reason for that is they're not fighting for women or gays or blacks. They're fighting for power. They're fighting for centralized power. Socialism always means centralized power, and they just love that stuff. And that's why none of this means anything. It's all like imagery. I wrap myself in a rainbow flag, but am I actually doing something that helps a gay guy who wants to start a business, who wants to live his life in peace? Am I actually doing anything for them? It's all fantasy, because it's always about power. It's always about where the money coagulates and where the power coagulates. It's absolutely infuriating to talk to Democrats who only, if they read anything, they read the New York Times. So they're actually wrapped up in this fantasy, because they're nice people. They're good people. They want good things, but they just don't know what's going on. They are not watching the results among the people. Which leads us back to Tim Walz, by the way, who sat around while Minnesota burned to the ground, Minneapolis burned to the ground. Oh, yeah,
we're going to get into that.
Okay,
we'll get into that. I have a whole thing on that I want to set up for you. But can I just say that, when you were talking about it, the obsession with diversity and skin color and all that, reminded me of Ann Coulter has a Substack out now, and she's talking about the Trump comments at the NABJ and how he's like, is she black? She's always kind of going by the Indian thing, but now she says she's black. And Anna was making a point about how there are black descendants of slaves in America. And obviously, American slaves were the worst treated Americans in our history, and it's a scourge on the nation. And trying to make things better for the slaves and their descendants was a good idea, and the country spent 100 years trying to do that. However, it's interesting how that concern by all Americans, once we got our heads sewn on straight, has been bastardized into any person of color is lumped in as though they've had the same experience here in America. Whereas like black immigrants from Jamaica, like her dad, do they have any connection to that history whatsoever? In fact, usually black immigrants to America tend to be very pro-America and do not consider themselves aggrieved. So does she understand, quote, the black experience as we understand it in that lane, to the point where she should be given DEI preferences? And Indian people as well, they tend to get counted as diversity. But, as Vivek, if he considers himself a diversity hire, right? Like Indians tend to be overachieving Americans who are very dedicated to hard work. It's just, her point is that everybody now gets lumped into this same group as though they have the same beleaguered history in this country and are owed the same, attempt to make life better. And you can make an argument that we're past the attempt to make life better for descendants of slaves here in 2024. But the argument becomes a lot stronger when you go beyond direct descendants of American slaves. That's what she's trying to say.
Yeah, and the argument has become exactly the reverse of what it was. Let us into the country because the country is great. Live out the meaning of your creed, as Martin Luther King said. Become more American. It has now become, from the founding on, we have been systemically racist. Everything we do is polluted by racism. America has to be fundamentally transformed. That's a reverse of the argument they started with. And so if you don't want to be part of the country, great, leave. That's fine with me. But if you do want to be part of the country, that means ascribing to the Judeo-Christian British values that built this country. And yes, you're absolutely right. Slavery was a shame. It was a shame because it was against the values on which the country was founded. Now these people are actually these activists. It's not, it's not the people a lot of times. It's just the activists. It's just the guys who are talking. And most of them are representing very wealthy, very powerful interests.
Yes.
A lot of them are white. A lot of them are actually making themselves feel better about being white or whatever, whatever they're doing psychologically, but they're not actually helping the guys on the ground, the people who need to be protected from crime, the people who need to be educated and lifted up.
That's why they let Chicago burn, right? That's why they let Chicago, the guys shoot each other up. They don't protest for them in the streets with BLM. They just use black crime or anything involving a black victim of a crime when it suits them in an election year. And that's been their MO since I became a reporter and before. I'm going to take a quick break and then we're going to come back. Thank God we have Andrew for the whole show because there's so much more we have to do. We will be taking a deep dive into the misrepresentations now that are being made by Team Harris Walz about what Trump said about Walz's performance during the Minnesota riots that we saw post George Floyd. Stand by. Do you ever think, how can I work this hard and still be in debt? The piles of overdue bills, the threatening phone calls, never having money to do anything. If you are trapped in debt, Done with Debt can be a way out. They have developed aggressive new strategies to end your debt permanently. Done with Debt stands between you and your harassing bill collectors. They tirelessly negotiate with your creditors to lower or even forgive what you owe. And they do it all without bankruptcy or new loans. One client said one phone call saved us a fortune. I wish we did this long ago. Done with Debt has unique strategies to get you out of debt faster and put more money in your pocket every month. But you need to hurry because some debt solutions are time sensitive and you don't want to miss out. Visit donewithdebt.com. Talk with one of their debt relief strategists for free. You have nothing to lose except your debt. Go to donewithdebt.com. That's donewithdebt.com. So continuing our discussion about the fantasy version of Kamala and like this fake version that's been created here. The accent is back. Okay. First, we saw her develop the magical accent when she was down south. And now it's back as she's in Detroit. Take a listen.
Hold on. You know what? Here, hold on. Here's the thing. The courts are going to handle that. We're going to beat them in November. Okay? We'll beat him in November. We'll handle that.
Because they were chanting, lock him up. We gonna beat him in November. Oh, really? Okay. We all know you don't talk like that. You've been vice president for 4 years, Andrew.
You got to believe this is kind of the point, I think. We're all supposed to just bathe in the fantasy. I mean, it really is like reality television. They keep accusing Trump of being the reality TV star, but that's actually what the press is inventing for this. I love the fact that she's actually not going to do an interview until September, maybe. That's an amazing thing. I just can't help but feel, remembering what it was like to be a reporter, I can't help but feel that these guys just must feel belittled and humiliated and useless.
Disagree.
They must know they have lost something. No?
No, they're like, good idea. She stinks. Don't put her out there. This is a brilliant campaign strategy. They want a Democrat in the White House more than they want their own dignity.
No, it's the older ones who remember what it was like to be a reporter. The new guys are actually taught that this is the right thing to do. And imagine the disdain that includes for the people, right? We have to fool them because they're not smart enough to realize how great progressivism is. I mean, that's got to be the rationale, right? It can't be that we're sneakily just trying to grab power from them. They must be thinking to themselves, these people, namely the American people, are so stupid and so backward that the only way we can convince them to do the right thing is to lie to them about what it is we're actually doing. So progressivism is great, but we're not progressives. That would be terrible. It would be terrible if we're progressives, which is great. It's great to be a progressive, but we're not them, because that would be terrible. And they have to keep selling this idea because they must think that we're just that dumb and just that bad.
Yeah, and that the media will run cover for them. And they are. But I do wonder, like, we're going to take calls in our second hour. And I do wonder, for our Black listeners, how do you feel when you see her get in front of a Black audience and suddenly she's like, we're going to beat him in November? Like, she doesn't talk like this. It's so offensive. It's like, I know how to talk to you. I mean, come on. She keeps doing this. To me, it's like so offensive. And they know. Yeah. We all know she's just a big walking bag of artifice. So
I've asked Black guys about this because I wonder,
Yeah, you go ahead.
I wonder when they say, Black people can't open a bank account. What are you talking about? We've got to cancel math classes because Black people can't learn math. It's unfair.
Voter
to Black
ID.
people to have a math class, and I just think, like, really? I mean, are you not insulted? Do you not feel belittled and infantilized? And of course, the Black guys I talk to tend to be a little bit more conservative. So they're all, that's a terrible thing to say. But I do wonder about the rank and file. I wonder about all these people who show up year after year and vote for Democrats who are telling them that they're so oppressed, that they're so helpless, that they can't do anything if the government doesn't help them. They're all like, it's the life of Julia. You've got to, if you want to have a baby, you've got to get Barack Obama on the phone to give you a baby. It's like, I don't understand why they're not offended to the nth degree.
No, now JD Vance will get you your baby because he likes babies. He doesn't like childless cat ladies. So you got to go to JD now, like no longer. Well, that's the other thing. Kamala had a soundbite where she called Tim Walz the varsity coach and JD the JV. So now on Morning Joe this morning, they all kept calling him JV Vance. This is their new cutesy little thing. Aren't they adorable and so joyful? Here's the other moment that's making headlines from her Detroit, Michigan rally, where she got interrupted by anti-Israel protesters. They don't care that she's a Dem. They're pissed. And watch what happened.
All good. I'm here because we believe in democracy. Everyone's voice matters, but I am speaking now. Fight against the climate crisis, and he intends to end the Affordable Care Act. You know what? If you want Donald Trump to win, then say that, otherwise I'm speaking.
She's giving him the stare down. And then the crowd breaks out into cheers of, we're not going back. Okay, so, Andrew, half the left is in love with this. Like, yeah, girl boss. And then there's the Mehdi Hassans of the world who are angry that she was so dismissive of the pro-Hamas wing of the Democrat Party. It does underscore the very tricky position that the Democrats are in right now. I mean, many people believe she didn't go with Josh Shapiro because she wants to appease that pro-Hamas wing, but push comes to shove, she shut him down.
I think that's obvious that they didn't go with Josh Shapiro. First of all, he's a really appealing, actually fairly moderate for a Democrat, a fairly moderate candidate. He's in a an important state, Pennsylvania, where I don't think Minnesota has voted for a Republican since the 70s.
72.
So the only reason they turned Josh Shapiro down is not because of his policies necessarily, but because he's Jewish. It was because there's no way to argue that you're going to be anti-Israel if you're actually Jewish. And listen, the anti-Semitism in the Democrat Party is rife. Anti-Semitism is a curse that doesn't care which party you belong to. But wherever it shows up, I always call it the devil's flagpole, because wherever it shows up, that's where the bad is. And right now it's showing up in the Democrat Party in a big, big way. And I think Josh Shapiro, look, you know, for a Democrat, again, I kind of like him, but I was embarrassed for him when he started to apologize for an article he wrote in college saying that it's hard to have a two-state solution when the Palestinians have vowed to wipe every Israeli off the face of the earth. And he said, well, I was young. I thought, yeah, you were young and you still believed that honesty was the best policy. You know, now you've moved on from that. I just thought that when your party is just erupting with anti-Semitism, that's the time to show some steel in your spine. That's the time to say, look, I am not backing down from this at all, because he has been a supporter of Israel, and the Biden administration has done nothing but stab Israel in the back. You know, they keep saying, all the media, including some of the more conservative media like the Wall Street Journal, they keep saying, well, America is working for a ceasefire. But if they are, they're doing just the wrong thing. You want a ceasefire, demand the hostages come back and support Israel without any daylight between you and the Israelis.
I got to pause you, Andrew. We're going to get cut off in 10 seconds. Hold that thought, okay? We're coming back in 10 seconds after this break, 10 seconds plus this break, and we are going to get into the misleading by the Harris campaign. As a kid, you loved eating cereal, but as an adult, maybe you love it, but you don't want all the sugar. And most cereals do not have the protein that you need. But then there's Magic Spoon, a nostalgically delicious cereal that tastes just like your childhood favorites, but without the sugar and with a ton of protein. And now Magic Spoon has turned their super popular cereal into high protein treats that are light, crispy, and taste just like those classic crunchy cereal bars. Magic Spoon's brand new treats are so delicious and can serve as a before or after gym snack. Magic Spoon's treats are an easy way to get 11 grams of protein on the go. And for the first time ever, Magic Spoon treats are available in grocery stores with delicious flavors like marshmallow and chocolatey peanut butter. Get $5 off your next order at magicspoon.com/MK or look for Magic Spoon in your nearest grocery store. That's magicspoon.com/MK for $5 off. Magic Spoon, hold on to the dream. Do you owe back taxes? Pandemic relief is now over. Along with hiring thousands of new agents and field officers, the IRS has kicked off 2024 by sending over 5 million pay-up letters to those who have unfiled tax returns or balances owed. Don't waive your rights and speak with them on your own. Tax Network USA, a trusted tax relief firm, has saved over $1 billion in back taxes for their clients, and they can help you secure the best deal possible. Whether you owe $10,000 or $10 million, they can help you. Whether it's business or personal taxes, even if you have the means to pay, or if you don't, if you're on a fixed income, they can help finally resolve your tax burdens once and for all. Call 1-800-245-6000 for a private free consultation or visit tnusa.com/Megyn. Andrew, on the stare down by Kamala of the, pro-Hamas, whatever, pro-Palestinian group, whatever you want to call them, it's interesting because Brianna Joy Gray, she's very pro-Hamas. She's one of those people who are celebrating the October 7th attack. She got fired from The Hill for that kind of commentary that she was doing. It was pretty incendiary. In any event, she tweeted out in response to that because she was very happy, I think, about Harris and certainly I'm sure about Walz. And she tweeted out, I predicted the glow would wear off of Harris by the time I got back from her vacation in Copenhagen. I got back today. Like this is going to be an ongoing problem for her. Because I think Kamala Harris's sympathies are more with the Palestinian protesters. And it certainly sounds like Walz might be there now. I don't know, a few years ago, he's been saying helpful things about Israel prior to 10/7. That wing doesn't believe it. And that wing wants, a harsh break from support of Israel, any sort of support of Netanyahu. And they want you to go full Hamas or they're not going to be satisfied.
Well, once again, note what Kamala Harris actually said to the protesters. Don't say that because Trump will get elected. Not don't say that because it's untrue. Not don't say that because you're supporting a bunch of rapists, murderers, jacked up on drugs while they wipe people off the face of the earth. but don't say it because Trump will get elected. So once again, it's the fantasy world that we're being told about. Kamala Harris has been far stronger in supporting the Palestinian cause than Joe Biden, who vaguely remembered that he was supposed to be pro-Israel and was kind of confused to find himself in the new anti-Semitic Democrat Party. So he was a little bit soft. But their big problem is the DNC, right? It's 1968 in Chicago again, and they're really afraid that their people will show up and turn the whole thing into a melee. And that's why I believe that must have, I don't have any inside information on this, but I believe that had to have fed in to the decision to throw Shapiro under the bus, because they did not want those people turning up and turning the DNC into a riot or any kind of real conflict, especially when you compare it to the RNC, which was such a love fest. So this is a serious problem, especially because there was big support for the Democrats from the Jews, because the Jews are always voting against their best interests. That's one of the racial traits, apparently. And now, the Jews are kind of divided. It's almost 50-50 between Republicans and Democrats, and that is going to be a big blow for Democrats. And of course, the squad has taken a couple of hits from AIPAC already.
There's a new poll actually just out on exactly that. Siena College, that's up in my neck of the woods by Albany. Siena College poll, New York State likely voters on the presidential election. Not surprisingly, has Harris way above Trump, 53-39, not a surprise. But when you see the breakdown, Jewish voters, and there's a large Jewish population in the state of New York, mostly in New York City. It's Donald Trump 50, Kamala Harris 49, which is very interesting. Something. I mean, for Jewish New Yorkers, it was Biden had a 6-point advantage over Trump with this group when he was still in the race. And in 2020, Jewish voters supported Biden over Trump 68-30. When it was 16, Jewish voters chose Hillary over Trump 71-26. But here we are, and they are tied. I mean, he's up 1 point, but it's within the margin of error, tied with Jewish voters in New York. It's pretty telling.
It's really important. I've always had some sympathy for Jewish voters clinging to Democrats, even though I knew the anti-Semitism in the Democrat Party was growing. I've known it for years and years, and I knew that their philosophy would naturally lead to anti-Semitism. But, Jews, for perfectly valid reasons, have very strong antenna when it comes to bigotry, and they want to support other people who are suffering from bigotry. And I have nothing but sympathy with all of that. But this is like everything else the Democrats do, like everything else the left does. I should be more specific, but like everything the left does, it's all a dodge. It's all about power, and it's all about converting this country into a country with a power center. Look, power either goes one of two ways. It either belongs to each of us or it belongs to all of us. If it belongs to all of us, then it all becomes centered in the government, because somebody has to dole out the goods. Somebody has to dole out the money. Somebody has to dole out the positions. Somebody has to dole out all the patronage jobs. That's the Democrat way, and it always has been, and now is more so. But the old way was that power and money belong to each of us. So each of us has to risk, each of us has to work, each of us has to be responsible to an employer or an investment, and that's what they're trying to get rid of. And ultimately, Jews, who operate well in the economic world and operate well as individualists, they're the ones who are going to get burned in this, and they're waking up to it. The riots that happened, those pro-Hamas riots on college campuses, I think sent a lot of Jews through the roof, and well, it should. Up until now, Ben Shapiro has always pointed out that the real divide has been between deeply religious Jews who are in fact conservative and secular Jews who have become part of the mainstream culture who tend to vote Democrats. But like all Democrats, they're not really paying attention. Say again?
That used to be you, that second group.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. That's exactly where I was. And it was only, I started to realize that my values were being transgressed right around the time affirmative action came out. It took me a long time. Look, it takes a long time to change your political affiliation, because it's not just based on your culture and your race. It's also based on who your parents voted for and who your family's for and who your friends are and all of those things. You're really taking the bones out of a fish when you change. I mean, it's a really traumatic change to change the way that you vote. But once you see people going out and celebrating the depredations of Hamas, that's got to be a wake-up call. I mean, I saw it coming a long, long time ago, but I think a lot of people have seen it now.
All right, so we talked about the half of the reactions which are upset that she was staring down the pro-Hamas protesters. But there are a lot of Democrats who were like, girl boss, you go. She's Mamala. And it did remind us of that infamous Drew Barrymore moment. Here it is.
I keep thinking in my head that we all need a mom. I've been thinking that we really all need a tremendous hug in the world right now.
Yeah.
But in our country, we need you to be Mamala of the country. And as a woman who respects so much and wants to share and wants to be confident and has no ounce of me that has competitiveness.
Yeah.
When we lift each other up, we all rise.
That's exactly right. That's right. That's right. That's right.
However, we need a great protector.
So I guess she's it. That's where we're going.
Drew Barrymore is my favorite Hollywood personality. She is if all of Hollywood had been distilled and formed into a single person. I don't even have to, when I go to the gym, she's always playing on the television. I don't even have to hear her. I just have to watch her to know what Hollywood is thinking, because that's exactly, please be our mommy, please.
Oh, God, it's stomach churning. All right. So I want to turn to the lies coming out of the Harris-Walz campaign about Trump and the Minnesota riots, because one of the biggest strikes against Tim Walz is the way he handled them. He was governor of Minnesota in the post-George Floyd riots, and Minneapolis burned. The 3rd Precinct Police Department burned. They let it burn. And it wound up being a big fight publicly between the mayor, this left-winger Jacob Frey, and the sitting governor, who was Tim Walz, who was responsible. And now, of course, Trump and others are saying Tim Walz is largely responsible for what happened and doesn't know how to handle a crisis. When a crisis hits, he runs. See the deployment to Iraq that he dodged. See Minneapolis burning. He sat there and twiddled his thumbs and didn't have the guts to do what a leader would do. That's the accusation, okay? So Kamala Harris's team sends out online a version of a phone call between, it was Trump, it was AG Bill Barr, it was the Joint Chiefs Chair Mark Milley, Defense Secretary Mark Esper, and a number of governors, including Tim Walz. And it happened June 1st, 2020. Keep in mind, George Floyd died May 25th, 2020. So it was about a week after everything had happened. And here's, do we have just her version? Do we have her whole version of it? No, we have it just cut. We do? Okay. How long is it? All right. Yeah, okay. It's not the full version. We're going to break it down. I'm going to play it for you in chunks, and then I'm going to play you the full actual version, okay? So you can see what she did. Here's the first part of what she's playing as Trump's praise of Tim Walz.
I know Governor Walz is on the phone, and we spoke, and I fully agree with the way he handled it the last couple of days. I asked him to do that, and the whole world was laughing. 2 days, 3 days later, I spoke to the governor. The governor's, I think, on the call, and he's an excellent guy.
Okay, so that's them saying, that's Trump saying, I fully agree with the way Walz handled it. He's an excellent guy. You know, case closed. That's according to Kamala. Here's the full version.
I know Governor Walz is on the phone, and we spoke. And I fully agree with the way he handled it the last couple of days. I asked him to do that. Get a lot of men. We have all the men and women that you need. But people aren't calling them up. You have to dominate. If you don't dominate, you're wasting your time. They're going to run over you. You're going to look like a bunch of jerks. And the whole world was laughing. 2 days, 3 days later, I spoke to the governor. The governor's, I think, on the call, and he's an excellent guy. And all of a sudden, and I said, you got to use the National Guard in big numbers. They didn't at first, then they did. And I'll tell you that, I don't know what it was. It was governor, it was the 3rd night, 4th night. Those guys walked through that stuff like it was butter. They walked right through, and you haven't had any problems since.
Okay. You see the difference there, Andrew, right?
Right, of course. He was waiting. It was 3 days before Walz called out the guard, despite the fact that the mayor was begging and the police chief was begging. And Megyn, I think you're being too kind to him to call him a mere coward. I think that it was not that there was a crisis and he ran. It was his sympathy with the rioters. He said so. He said that if you call out the National Guard, the rioters are going to see that as part of the problem. The police being the problem, not the criminals, not the people who are causing the police to have to do what they do. His wife said she opened the windows so she could smell the tires burning because it was such an iconic moment, and later said that she really felt America deserved what it was getting. I think they both did. They both really took that position that this was somehow an expression of justice. And talking about fantasy, the George Floyd story is a complete fantasy. I mean, it was not even if you believe, and I do not believe this, but even if you believe Derek Chauvin murdered him, which I think is nonsense, but even if you believe that, it's not representative of the way the police treat people, and it's certainly not representative of the way the police treat black people, and it's not representative of the way black people feel about the police, because they know without the police, they're cooked, because there's a lot of crime in poor black neighborhoods, as there tend to be in many poor neighborhoods. And so the whole thing is a fantasy, and the idea that we needed to defund the police, which is insane, that's a fantasy. And it's just a strange thing that we are now living in a world that is maybe so rich and so protected that when we come into contact with reality, we think it's offensive. We think that when people speak bluntly and say the things that we all know are true, it's somehow a bad thing to do. I mean, that's what they're getting J.D. Vance on. He tends to say things directly. But yeah, he really abandoned the poorest people in his community to the worst people in his community, many of them outside agitators. People were looking outside and seeing their favorite stores burn. Nicole, what's her name? Nicole, I can never remember her name, but from the New York Times, the lady who did the 1619
Hannah
project.
Brown?
She's saying, oh, it's not
Hannah
really
Johnson.
violence because it's only...
Sorry.
Yeah, Hannah Jones, that's it. She's saying it's not really violence because it's only property. It's not people. Well, those property of people's dreams and people's jobs and the places
not to
that
mention
they go
those
to get their
cops'
medicine.
lives, Andrew. I mean, that precinct was burned to the ground.
Yep. And it was just abandoned by Walz. And again, I don't think it was cowardice. I don't think it was, there was a crisis and he ran for it. I think it was sympathy with the people burning his capital.
Probably, you're right.
The city and the state.
You're exactly right. That's exactly right. Because his statements after the fact did suggest that. And how about the wife? Like, well, I rolled down the windows and I smelled the tires. Oh, sure. Well, you're basically just like one of the protesters, ma'am. You totally get the plight of Black America. You smelled some burning tires for a while, did you? But then it got noxious, so you put the windows right back up. Okay, yeah, you get it.
That reminds me.
So
of
here, let me keep
Now.
going because there's more. There's more.
Yeah.
So $500 million of damage, by the way, while Tim Walz sat there, and now he's claiming Trump said he did a good job. But again, for the listening audience, you could hear him saying, we've got all these men and women. We've got all the people you need, but people aren't calling them up. You have to dominate. He's saying, and I said to Tim Walz, this is what he's saying. I said, you got to use the National Guard and take the numbers. And they didn't at first, then they did. And he said, I'll tell you, third night, fourth night, these guys, they walked through the stuff like it was butter, meaning the National Guard, when they finally got there, they walked right through and you haven't had any problems since. That's the context in which he's praising them. You sucked in the beginning. Then I talked to you and told you what to do, and you got better. Now here's version 2. Kamala Harris, in the same thing she's released, ostensibly showing how Trump loved Tim Walz and how he handled it, included this line.
Tim is on the phone now. Tim Walz, again, I was very happy with the last couple of days, Tim. You called up big numbers, and the big numbers knocked them out so fast it was like bowling pins.
Our city is grieving and in pain.
Okay, here's the full version.
Tim is on the phone now. Tim Walz, again, I was very happy with the last couple of days, Tim. You called up big numbers, and the big numbers knocked them out so fast it was like bowling pins. Is Tim there? Because I'd like to maybe have him explain the difference between the beginning and the end. And then probably going to come back. Tim, are you there?
I am. Thank you, Mr. President. I want to give a thank you to Secretary Esther and General Milley for your strategic guidance. Very helpful. Our city is grieving and in pain.
And then just let me play you what happens right after that. SOT 20.
24 years in the Guard. So one thing I would say is that you could do is a lot of people don't understand who the National Guard is, and you need to get out there from a PR perspective and make sure that it's not seen as an occupying force, but it's their neighbors, school teachers, business owners, those types of things. That's a really effective method.
Okay, good. I think that's a good idea. I must tell you, it got so bad a few nights ago that the people wouldn't have minded an occupying force. I wish we had an occupying force in there. But for some reason, I don't know what it is, governors don't like calling up a lot of the Guard. We have thousands and thousands of people waiting to be called up. Is that a correct statement, General? 350,000. We have 350,000 people, and they call up 200. Tim did that the first night, which wasn't successful. What happened is after that he said, let's go. And I'll tell you, it was like magic.
Can you believe how deceptively that call has been edited? The whole point of the call was Trump saying, you were screwing it up. Then you talked to me and my defense secretary. We told you to get the National Guard in there. By the way, then you didn't call them up in enough numbers. And only when you did things get better for you. And he's talking with the other governors saying, that's what you have to do. It has to be brute force in huge numbers, not brute force, but huge numbers in order to get the results that you want. And Kamala Harris has released that with just those little snippets of praise as if Trump endorsed Tim Walz's approach to this.
You just got to get with the fantasy, Megyn. You're just you're just striving for too much reality here. And I think it's going against the program. Also, I just want to add that Walz says to him, thank you for your guidance, Mr. President. Whereas later on, he made a speech saying the president had been unhelpful and he didn't know what he was talking about. And, I don't need your help and all that stuff. So it really is deceptive all the way down.
Well, and let me just give you a little bit of the timeline because you mentioned it. All right, just to give you some color on this and why he was so grateful. You've got Monday, May 25th, George Floyd's killed. Tuesday, May 26th, the protests first break out. 1,500 businesses burned. Wednesday, May 27th. Okay, this is Wednesday, 2 days later. Second evening of unrest. That's when the Minneapolis mayor, Jacob Frey, first asked Walz, please deploy the National Guard at 6:29 p.m. Walz did not say yes. We've seen statements from Jacob Frey later saying Walz is hesitating. He didn't understand why. Hours later, the city's police chief submitted a written request for 600 troops, not responded to. And you've got Walz acknowledging this is an extremely dangerous situation, but he's not doing anything about it. So Minneapolis burns on the night of Wednesday, May 27th, and it had already been in trouble prior to that because that was the second evening. Now we get to the third day, May 28th, Thursday. Jacob Frey tweets, please, Minneapolis, we're asking for your help. Keep the peace tonight. His office follows up to Tim Walz. Where are you? Where's our National Guard? We need help. Now he puts it in writing. Please send in the National Guard. There's widespread looting and arson. They're going into night 3 of this. Thursday, finally, in the afternoon, 2:30, Walz signs an executive order activating the National Guard, saying he really wants to protect the peaceful demonstrators, the neighbors, and the small businesses. And then at 4:13 p.m., National Guard's Twitter account says we're ready and prepared. That same night, the third precinct burns. Walz only sent in 90. He only sent in 90 of the National Guardsmen. He had hundreds that he could have sent, and he didn't. Then Friday, Trump tweeted, I can't stand back and watch this happen to a great American city, Minneapolis. A total lack of leadership. Either the very weak radical left mayor, Jacob Frey, gets his act together and bring the city under control, or I will send in the National Guard and get the job done right. Then he said, just spoke to Governor Tim Walz, told him that the military is with him all the way, any difficulty, and we will assume control. So that's reflected in what we would see a couple of days later. He was talking to Walz saying, send in the damn National Guard. And now we do know that it wasn't Frey. It was Walz who was ignoring Jacob Frey and not sending the Guard. And then Saturday, May 30th, Tim Walz finally activated the entire Minnesota National Guard. Trump had offered the use of active duty soldiers to assist. And then the next day, Monday, was Trump's call with those governors. I mean, it's just Can I just, let me just give you one other thing, and then I'm going to give you the floor. I've been talking too long. This is the media, rather than reading through the transcripts or going, this is not a secret call that we just got our hands on. The media's known about this call since 2020. Here's some of the write-ups. CNN, Trump in 2020 praised Tim Walz's handling of the George Floyd protests. AP News, Trump praised Minnesota Governor Walz in 2020 for response to unrest over Floyd's murder, audio shows. ABC, despite new criticism, Trump told Walz in 2020 he was very happy with his handling of George Floyd protests. The New Republic, newly leaked audio exposes how Trump truly feels about Kamala's VP. I could keep going. This is the game. This is how it goes. They make up the lies. They deceptively edit. They push the lies with the help of all of the mainstream media, all of them. And then it's up to people like you and me on shows like ours to try to set the record straight. I'm done.
Yes, we should mention that according to the New York Post, Walz's daughter was informed of classified information, given classified information as to where the deployment of the National Guard would be, and alerted rioters to where they were coming so they could stay safe from the authorities. I mean, that's also part of the story. And it's part of the story that when Tom Cotton wrote an op-ed for the New York Times saying the National Guard should be called out to stop rioting, that one of the editors who allegedly, approved the op-ed was fired for letting a senator have an opinion in the New York Times, because we deserved it. We deserve to have our cities burned down because we're just that racist. And that really is their opinion. And it really is an opinion that affects the poorest among us the most. It is the people who have the least, who lose the most in these riots. And these cities don't come back. George Floyd Square in Minneapolis is now a no-go zone for police. It's one of the highest crime areas in the city. You can't go in there safely. So that's the tribute to George Floyd, that now everybody in that area is a criminal. And so, who gets hurt by this? It's obviously, it's just like inflation. It's like they keep telling us, why is it you people don't like the economy? What's wrong with you people? How come you don't like the economy? And you think like, yeah, because we can't afford anything, but you can. The rich people can afford to have a riot. The rich people have other homes. They have other places they can go. They can leave. It's the people on the ground who get hurt every single time. And that is what has made the Democrats the party of wealthy people who do not understand that their policies, their dreamy fantasy policies, have real life implications for the weakest and the smallest among us. And it's absolutely infuriating. And it's absolutely infuriating that Donald Trump, who weirdly enough, for a billionaire, does seem to have some kind of feeling for the ordinary guy. I mean, there's just something about him. I've always said the finest moment of his presidency was that time that the Marine's hat blew off and he went chasing after it because he did it without thinking. And that really is who he is. There's something about him that sort of gets the guy on the floor. I don't know where that comes from. It's a very New York trait. In New York, everybody's so pressed together that you all sort of know each other, and you do have a feeling.
The construction business,
too. Real estate business. Yeah. And it is funny. This is what we're really dealing with, is we're dealing with the fact that the media has become corporate and has become a job. Journalists go into that job after getting education. In the old days, it was where smart people without an education went. And so they hated anybody in power who were willing to report on anybody abusing their power. Yeah. And this is now, our journalists are all elites. They're all from the top universities. To get hired at the New York Times, you practically need to have a Ivy League school branded on your forehead. And they all share these ideas that have absolutely no relationship to the weakest and the poorest among us. It is absolutely terrifying to watch the power just coagulate between government, the academy, and the press. And so when those people call themselves the resistance, it's a joke, because the only people that are resisting are the people.
So we had President Biden is the most vigorous, astute President Biden ever of his entire career. Yeah. That lie pushed and propagated by Joe Scarborough and all on the mainstream media. He's amazing. He's great. These are cheap fakes. You're not seeing what you're seeing. Then we have Kamala Harris. She's the second coming. She's Mamala. She's joyful. And he's folksy. He's just folksy. In case you hadn't noticed, Tim Walz is just folksy. He's definitely not trying to take custody from parents so he can allow them to have their body parts chopped off as minors. For sure. That's a lie too. They want us to know. Bullshit. It's true. All these lies. We talked about at the top of the hour. There's no there on the military stolen valor stuff. Those are lies too. Don't believe that. He didn't do anything whatsoever, didn't misstate anything about his record. And by the way, Trump was 100% pleased with Tim Walz's handling of the National Guard and the Minneapolis riots. Okay, like the lie, we're stewing in the lies. And that leads me to my last point. And that is these two sexual differences, males in the Olympics fighting as boxers. I say that because they're not technically trans. They're not like guys who were born and lived their childhoods as boys and then decided to dress up as women and fight. They were born with DSDs is what we call it. It used to be called intersex or hermaphrodite. And this particular disorder that's been listed, these XY chromosomes for these particular two, means that you're a male, but your genitals don't fully develop on the outside. And so you may actually be raised as a girl, especially in some cultures like Algeria. But it is very clear to all, as soon as you hit puberty, if not before, you're a boy, because you will start growing. The testes are already in you. There's no female body parts inside. The testes are in you. Sometimes they will descend. Sometimes a penis will start to grow. You will 100% go through male puberty, and you will get all of the benefits of male puberty that any man does, with the lengthening of the femur and all of the bones and the heart enlarging and the lung capacity growing and the bone strength and the muscles, all of it. You will get all those advantages. And that is what happened to these two Olympic boxers, one from Taiwan, one from Algeria. And we're not allowed to talk about it because they have DSDs, and that's sad. And that is sad. But I'm more sad for the women who are getting punched in the face as we watch this. And I'll give you the media coverage, just a couple of examples on these two. All right. Because they're both now going to get a gold medal. They're in different weight classes. They're not fighting each other. But they're both going to get a gold medal because or at least a silver, because they're in the last round of the games. So two of the gold medalists in a female boxing could very well be men. That's the blue guy is the man, one of the men. New York Times, boxer in controversy over eligibility lets her gloves do the talking. Cue fawning coverage about how she's a woman. Let's see, Washington Post, Megyn Kelly, that's one of them, won her match. The talk about her was a loss for everyone. The biggest tragedy is that detractors are boxing in women, determining that female athletes must look and behave a certain way. Yes, they must be women. We don't care if they look like women. They have to actually be women. Declaring that anyone who doesn't fit a particular mold should be hauled into a clinic for an invasive series of exams. They knew from a damn cheek swab followed up by a blood test. Those are not invasive. A cheek swab could tell if you're XY or XX in 2 seconds. Then there's The Sun. Megyn Kelly is the world's first fictional trans Olympian. Those who labeled her male were deeply irresponsible. AP, for female athletes of color, scrutiny around gender roles and identity is part of a long trend. It's about her color, his color. USA Today, unhinged controversy around Olympic boxer Megyn Kelly should never happen again. Correct. The controversy is that USA Today, won't call him a male, which is what he is. AP News, vitriol about female boxer, wrong. Megyn Kelly fuels concerns of backlash against LGBTQ+ and women athletes. What? What are you saying? Wired, the shameful controversy over Olympic boxer Megyn Kelly. And then Bloomberg, this is all a manufactured controversy. They truly want us to believe this is a woman and we are the problem for objecting.
You know, I used to be a big boxing fan, and it's very hard for me to watch boxing now because physical conditioning has gotten so much better. These guys are so much more powerful than they used to be, but the human head is still as soft as it ever was. So it's much harder for me to watch a boxing match than it used to be. To watch a woman get punched in the face is almost unbearable. Unlike a lot of people, when I was a kid, I got in a lot of fights. That's why I look like this. And I've punched people in the face, and I've been punched in the face. And all of these, talk about fantasy coming home to roost, all of these television shows in which a 5'4" girl hits a guy and he goes rolling out the door, pure fantasy. And yet a lot of women actually believe it. A lot of women actually believe that if they're attacked by a man, they're going to have some sort of chance to fight it out with them. That's what they're depending on in this case. When I saw that Italian girl, and I don't remember her name, get hit in the face by this guy, and she fell down and started crying, saying, "This is not fair." I thought that's understating the case. That is understating the case. All your training, all your dreams, all your hopes, all the work you put in, all the discipline you showed have just been thrown away so that this fantasy that men can become women and there's no difference and women, women actually don't exist, which is really what they're going for. All of that can be played out as if this life were some kind of fantasy. It's terrible to have the Olympic Committee essentially say that it's all right for a man to punch a woman. I mean, I've been trying. I've been with my wife for 50 years. I love her to death. I've been treating her with respect and kindness. Now I can explain to her that the Olympic Committee says all I have to do is clock her, and that's fine.
You could get a medal for it.
It's a sport. It's a sport. Yeah. I mean, it's an atrocity. It is absolutely wrong at the deepest possible level. But that's how precious their fantasy is for them, that girls have to lose their sports, that they have to lose their work, that they have to be disrespected, that they have to lose their private spaces so that people with penises come marching through their locker rooms and they just get used to it because this is the fantasy we're going for now. It really is. It shows you how dear this fantasy is to the left because leftism itself is kind of a fantasy version of the world.
What's happened here is they've managed to genuinely confuse people because the IOC just keeps saying they're women, that they were, quote, born women, which they weren't. They have XY chromosomes, and they're trying to cast doubt on the International Association of Boxing or the Boxing Federation. Can never remember exactly what it's called, but that was the sporting body that oversaw boxing until the IOC wrested control from them, claiming there were some financial irregularities. Okay, I don't know whether that's true or not. I'm not enough into the sport, but I do know that we've now had a doctor who's on the board of the Boxing Federation and a well-respected sports journalist who spent his career at NBC who says he saw the tests. He saw the photographic evidence from the test. Both of them were saying both tested positive for XY. That's why they were disqualified from fighting in Worlds in 2023. And the Taiwanese fighter chose not to appeal that ruling. Ask yourself this: if you are about to fight in the gold medal round and they tell you you can't because you're not actually a woman and you are one, why the hell would you not appeal? It makes no sense. And Megyn Kelly, same exact position, filed an appeal though, and then withdrew it. These two are male. Look at this. We know this is a man. Eyes still matter. They can still inform you. When you go in to be a juror in a jury room, the court will tell you, the lawyers will tell you, you don't check your common sense at the door. They want you to bring that in when you assess controversies. This is a male. And I stopped saying man because I've gotten a lot of email from my viewers saying, no man would punch a woman in the face for sport. Stop calling him a man. It's an insult to men. So I say male now. And the one woman who lost to the Taiwanese guy, most recently, depriving her a medal now. Her name is Esra Yildiz Karaman. She's from Turkey. She lost 5-0 on Wednesday. She is the second woman to hold up the XX symbol, to do XX when it was done. Look at her. I'm a woman, and this sport is for women. And I can't believe, I can believe it. It's kind of the theme of the show, but I kind of can't believe that all these publications are just going with it. Like, she doesn't F the fighters, F them with the XX. You have to take it. They're men in every way, shape, and form except for what's between their legs, maybe. And they've gone through male puberty. And if you get hurt, if you get killed, it's really not our problem. It's your damn problem. What we stand for is inclusion. That's what the IOC has said. This is so dangerous.
It's so dangerous and it's so false. And it really is, I've said for a long time, men are always saying there's a war against men, a war against masculinity. We're being called toxic. Everything we do is toxic. But I really think that the war is against women. I think the idea with men is that they're not supposed to be men because then women can't compete with them. But it's all about getting women out of the home. It's all about getting women out of the position of being women, of having the kind of natural feelings of women that are more generous than men, that are actually more productive and creative than men. It's all about eliminating this half of the human race that actually goes against the socialist ideal. The socialist ideal from the very start, Karl Marx and Engels said this, we've got to get women out of the home. We've got to get rid of the family, because the family is a unit of governance that actually supersedes the government above it, and makes the government above it able to be less. You can have less government when you have more families. What have they done? They've destroyed the black family. The Great Society just wiped the black family out. They mean it. They mean it. This is what they intend. And in order to really get rid of the family, it's women you have to undermine. And all of this is part of it. It's not separate from the rest of it. It really is not. And this idea that women have to just tolerate having their heads handed to them by male boxers is obscene. And the answer to it, by the way, is organizing in women's sports. Women have to start saying, we will not show up en masse. Because one woman can't do it alone. But all of them should just say, we will not do this anymore. You can't steal our trophies. You can't beat us in races. You can't punch us out. It's just not going to happen. We're all going to stand together. That would be some sisterhood. That would be some women's solidarity that would really have an effect on what's going on, because as it is now, they're being intimidated. They're being cowed. They just can't stand up for themselves alone. I don't think anybody could, but I think they have to stand up together and just shut this down, because once that happens, then you're stuck. They will not be able to triumph against the women athletes if they organize and stand together as one.
It's amazing. We're letting our female prisoners get raped in 8x8 cells with serial male rapists. We're letting our young girls be exposed to penises in their elementary, middle school room bathrooms and locker rooms. We're letting them, in some cases, get sexually assaulted by these people. We're letting them get actually assaulted on the volleyball courts and the field hockey fields. And now it's come to this, combat sports. We're watching men beat up women for fun and for gold medals. That should be ours. And we're being told by the media we must celebrate it or we're a disgrace. It's wrong. It's evil. Andrew Klavan, love talking to you. Thank you so much for being here.
Always great to see you, Megyn. Thanks for having me.